Yay. Doing it again.
Is it working? I didn't post much today, so
Oh.
in preparation, I didn't want to get us locked out due to my bad Facebook etiquette. Okay. See if we're up there. Do you see us on there yet?
I am checking in right now. And it
Meeting
looks
is
like,
streaming live.
yeah, I see that on here and I see we're live.
Great. All right, Janessa. So we have spent quite a bit of time over the last several months talking about lots of different things, from social justice and how you're going to make an impact in the world, being bold, taking responsibility for your narrative of your life, having brave spaces and uncomfortable conversations, how to show up for yourself. And today we're going to talk about work smarter, not harder. And I think the two of us are the perfect people to talk about this, because between you and I, we do a whole lot of work.
We do. We cover a lot of ground.
Yeah. And do people say to you, like, how do you do it? How do you do it all?
I get a, when do you sleep? Because you're always on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, you and I do, I think, both take luxurious amounts of self-care each day. I mean, I from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m., I'm in the self-care luxury mode.
Absolutely. That's how I keep accountable to my energy. If I'm not right in those early morning hours, I think we're also both early risers, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, that moment of, let's get good with me first before I tend to anyone else, is so pivotal to the way that rest of that day lays out.
So what are some of the things you do? Let's each say what we do in the morning.
So first,
I know it changes season to season and things like that, but in general, what are your prime time things that you do for yourself?
I get up in the morning, I shake it, do a lot of lymph kind of massage, just checking in on how I am feeling physically. And then I actually go around and sit in my favorite spot, my meditation center, in my space, in my home, and just listen to the sounds in the room, to the sounds outside of the room. What can I hear outside the home? Drill it right back in again and hear the sound of my own breath. And that is key. Like, how well did I sleep? What else is still on my mind? What's holding me up right now physically? That means I didn't really digest it overnight. I didn't process it yesterday. And I don't want to walk into today with yesterday still on my mind. So I do a lot of meditation and self-awareness and body, awareness practices. That's really important for me before I speak to someone else and possibly transfer my energy onto them. I tune into me and make sure
barf yesterday onto them.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
It's funny you say that. I do a lot of the same things. I have a lot of pets, and if I get out of my bed, then the whole house goes crazy. So I do most of what you just said, but I lay in bed and pretend I'm asleep so that nobody knows I'm awake. But it's all that same thing. How is my physical body feeling today? If I've had a bad night's sleep, that means I'm emotional about something, because I am a sleeper. So if I wake up not having a good night's sleep, that means there was something from yesterday that did not get digested.
Right.
And yeah, exactly. And sometimes I'll even get up at 4 a.m. and write an email, an apology or something to clean that up, because I don't want to take that into this day.
Right.
So if you get a really early email from me, it's because I didn't sleep. And then
I totally agree.
The lymph goes. It's funny you should say that, because every single morning, I one of the first things I do is I jump on one of those little mini trampolines for my lymph, because I just feel my legs feel heavy. I feel, and as soon as I do that 10 minutes of jumping, like everything is light and spacious and feels great again.
That's and if you don't have that, if someone's listening to this, heel rocking, right? Laying down your back and just doing some heel rocks, just to find your body kind of like shaking itself, or maybe cradling itself back into awareness. All of those things work. Those are things like my grandmother would used to do. I would watch her do that because I grew up with her, and we're like, I didn't understand what she was doing at the time before doing any of this kind of work, but this was her routine, and I picked up on it. And then when we learned about it in yoga therapy or in yoga teacher training and Ayurveda training, I was like, that's what she was doing. Wow,
So we get our day straight, we do our meditation. I for the last 45 days have been doing about an hour of pranayama and meditation. And I gotta tell you, it is transformational. Like, I love pranayama, but not that much pranayama. But I signed up for this thing with my teachers in India, and they basically were doing it, for weeks on end. And so I started doing it, and my mind started to feel so much more clear and stable. And here's a really weird benefit of it, that I had better boundaries. Whereas before I would feel like, oh, I want to people please. I want to make sure everybody likes me. I want to be, the happy, nice person, the spiritual lady. And after I started doing an hour of pranayama every day, it was like, nope, I'm going to have to disappoint somebody today. And I was like, that's amazing. They say pranayama gives you better discrimination and makes your mind more clear. And I swear it works.
I got to try that. I definitely have to try that. I do a lot of breath awareness, but not to the point of like that long of a time or be that consistent. That's a challenge that I would love to accept.
Yeah. So what they did is it was a 15-day meditation, but I did weekends too. So then I got 21 days, and then I kept doing it. And they took us through like all these different pranayamas for an hour each morning. And I was just like, man, this is amazing. So where that helped me out with my productivity, which we're getting to in a minute, is I don't have to clean up as many messes from my mind that wanted to please people and say yes when I should have said no, and then make an excuse and then say I'm sorry. Like all that yama, social discipline, like all that stuff kind of cleared out, because now I was making solid
decisions.
Yeah. And nobody was mad if I said no. Nobody cared that I couldn't people please. They were like, oh, okay, thank you, goodbye. I was like, wait a minute, you're not disappointed that I didn't try to please you? Right? So
that's another level of clarity. I mean, that's amazing.
So I'm like, I don't want to take an hour to do it, but there's a part of me that's like, if I do it, my whole life is cleaner. And that's so nice. Like, then I don't have to deal with all the BS all day long.
Right.
So I'm kind of thinking I'm committed to continuing it, even though I feel it's far too much time to spend on pranayama.
Well, if you're leading it, I'm part of that. Okay. I know several people, particularly going into the fall season, would love something like that to help get them refocused back into what the new world kind of looks like. And that's also a bold move too, to say, you know what, I'm going to dedicate a different level of self-care to me, 1 hour every day. I love that.
Well, I'll think about it, because what that would, I mean, usually I have like bed head and no makeup, and it's like, do you really want to see me doing that in the morning in my pajamas? All right, so let's get to this. Today's topic is work smarter, not harder.
Yes.
So what do you want to say? What's the thing that you just want to get out there that everybody needs to know about this?
It's layered again, right? So it's never just about, well, I got this new integration, I got this new tech, and I got this new app. The biggest way that we talk about this is, how many times have we started a new productivity, keep me accountable thing, and it just falls flat within the week, especially now during COVID, right? Especially now when everyone's working distributed, working from home. You get a calendar, you have an app setting, you get a new to-do list, something else that ping pong, bing bong kind of notifications. And then you have to sit back and think, well, did it align with where I wanted to be? Or was it just another task? So we talked for weeks about showing up for yourself and being aligned with your own values. And if you want to be productive, meaning it's coming from your core self about where you want to show up and how you want to show up in the world, productivity arises from that. It's not going to be the latest app. It's not going to be the latest ding dong, whatever kind of a notification that you can get. It's not a new application. It's not a new technology. It's a new self-awareness about who you want to be. And that's how you get to work smarter and not harder. I had this question earlier this week. How did you get here so quickly? Because we graduated at the same time from yoga teacher training school. And I said, from the moment I enrolled, I knew where I wanted to go. Some folks enroll in things, and it doesn't have to be yoga teacher training. It could be all sorts of things. When you're talking about boundaries, right? When do you sign up for things that just do not align with who you are? You were just trying to please some external source, asking for validation, seeking that validation and totally losing yourself in the process. And so being productive, working smarter is about starting once again with self. What do you want for the rest of your day to look like? How do you want to shape that? That we have the power to shape that. You know, even if you're working for someone else, we all, both of you and I have worked in institutions where, oh man, I got to go there again. Oh man, I got to go there again. Oh, I'm going to sign up for another semester.
Please, God, don't make me go there again. Please get me out of this.
But one thing that has COVID and this whole situation of working from home has done is help us realign closer to where we want to work, how we want to show up. You know, folks are so upset about working from home, and I'm like, this is the best thing has ever happened to me. I get to be home with my dogs. I get to cook my own food. I'm now more healthy working from home than I ever was working for any other organization or for myself. You know, running around from one location to another location, dealing with different personalities, having a boundary to say, hey, you know what, this call has to be over. Click. You know what I mean? I'm on the time scheduled. It's got to be super efficient here. So yeah, working smarter is about getting clearer.
I agree with you. I have never been happier. I have never been healthier. I have never felt better. I feel so much more centered and grounded, and I am committed that this is how I will work forever. I know some people cannot wait to get back to their, hustle bustle. Not me.
Right.
If you want to connect with me, I'm going to be in my house.
Right.
I have a dog and a cat, and they're going to be in every meeting.
Right, exactly.
Take it or leave it.
They're my new assistants. Yes.
Exactly. And there's soup on the stove, and I've got some laundry in that office over there, right? Going on. So I just love everything that you said. I completely agree. And what came to me when you were speaking is how many times in my life I've somehow thought that something outside of me is going to make me or help me climb a ladder or show people who I am or get, notoriety. So then my business, it doesn't work. People just take your work for free, use you for whatever they need to use you for. And then 2 years later, you're completely depleted in the same place you started, and you're no further along your path, and you're starting over on a new project. And what I hear you saying that I agree with is, what am I here to do? What is my dharma? Who am I? What do I want to bring to the world? How is that going to come uniquely out of me? I don't need anybody else for that. I mean, it's nice to do a podcast or an article or something. I'm not saying we can't, but to think somehow the external is going to make us is not true. It's you inside. I know yoga teachers that are making six figures that no one's ever heard of.
Right.
Because they do what's true to them. They do it well. The people that need to know them, and everybody else doesn't need to know them because it's, like people who specialize in a very specific thing that the rest of the yoga world doesn't care about.
Right.
They care about, and the people they serve care about.
Amy, can you say that louder for the people in the back?
Which part?
The fact that you can actually have a viable, sustainable income without having to have 1 million followers and be an influencer and do contortionist yoga. You can be true to yourself and still have a sustainable living doing yoga. Yes, it's possible. It's doable. The question is, do you want that more than the external validation?
100%. And I think, you and I both run business courses on this. You and I both coach on this. This is what I tell my people. Like, if you want to be famous, that's great. But I know famous people that are in huge credit card debt in the yoga world. I would rather help them, and I think you would too, would rather help them build a sustainable business that it's energetically sustainable, their family it's sustainable, their finances it's sustainable, and nobody may know you, but you're going to be making really good money doing what you love.
Right. The people who need to know you will know you. And the people who don't know you, that's okay too. They might in due time. What's yours is yours. And that there talks about that conversation of having abundance without the whole spiritual bypassing. Life is abundant, which we talk a lot about in our industry, but we rarely do act in that way. We think we have to get every little opportunity, which is only going to bear us small fruit.
Yep. And deplete us.
Yes, and deplete us at the same time. And actually realigning ourselves with where we want to be in the world is actually way more fruitful than trying to do what everyone else has done before. It's we're walking the hard path, the difficult decision. Being true means being productive.
Right. Exactly. Because then you know, what should I say yes to? Because it's right in alignment with my path and what looks like a phenomenal opportunity, but it's actually not for me. It's not in my dharma. So I can let it go to someone else instead of I have to grasp and try to be everything all the time. And, you know,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's the first order of business, I think we can call
Mhm.
it, in learning how to work smarter than harder. A, dedicate the time to you, get real with you. And then two is, dedicate the time to create your reality in accordance to how you feel. I mean, you know when you're real. You know you're sleeping better. You know you're losing weight or maintaining good, healthy weight. You're digesting well. Like all these things that we learn about is really happening. Your skin is glowing, like your presence, you're attracting the type of people who actually want to see you do more good for you. And doing it altruistically,
Yeah.
that's when you know you're in your element. So looking out for those is like, oh, I need to move down that path, the same path that I'm taking now, and continue maintaining consistency in that.
Well, and I just have to say, this is the biggest hurdle for the people on our course is that they see everybody else scattering themselves too thin. They see everybody else trying to be all to everyone. They see everyone else giving away all this free information. And I say, is everyone else making a living? No, they're not. You know how many yoga teachers aren't making a living? Then
Right,
why are you trying to replicate that?
right.
Why don't you come over here and be you, do you, focus on you? What's
Yeah.
the lifestyle you want? Where do you want to put your time and energy? And say no to the other things that don't go in alignment with that. Like,
Mhm.
and it's really hard for them to accept because the whole crowd is doing the other thing.
Mhm.
And I think they're very scared to come inward and be true and authentic and work from that deep inner place. I think somehow they have this block that that's not going to be abundant. And I keep telling them the other way is not abundant.
Right. It's that perspective of what
So
abundance.
why can't they make that jump? Why it's like they lack faith in themselves or something.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that we're raised in a society where people do not have faith, do not bet on themselves. It
Yeah.
is the yogic path to bet on yourself, believe it or not.
Yoga Sutra 1.3. If you're not going to bet on you, who are you going to bet on?
So I mean, I can point to so many directions where sometimes we are, we say one thing in the in our industry, but we do something totally different. And this is just one of those examples of sometimes it's the shaming of being different. Like, why are you doing that? And that's not the way it goes. And so being clear about who you are and how you want to stand up and show up in the world, that same what I have people do in my coaching business is I ask people for an intro statement. Introduce yourself to me. And I don't want to hear about the 200 hour, the 500 hour. I want to hear about, like, who do you want to show up as in your life, not just in your yoga business, in your life, because that's an entity, a part of you, not all of you. And
Right.
it's astonishing how many people are like, I want to have X amount of followers and X amount of, you know, I want to do festivals. Well, festivals are out of the equation right now. So does that mean you're not worthy? You know what I mean?
But even if you say you want to do festivals, you cannot make a living doing festivals.
Yeah.
Like, unless you're independently wealthy or have a wealthy spouse,
Right.
don't come to me and say you want to do festivals and make a living.
Right.
That's just not going to work. That's not a good business plan.
Right. Yeah. And so a lot of that times I think it's the idea of things that seem good until they actually do it and they realize, oh my gosh, that's hard work. And a lot of times the people who are successful, who are doing all these infamous things, they are doing the festivals, they don't see the 10 years of work that they put in to get there. It wasn't overnight. It wasn't overnight. And so we don't
And
usually see the
yeah,
long
and
haul.
people don't see how depleted they get running around trying to do that, and how so many yoga teachers make themselves sick.
Yes. Yes. And then pass on, because they're not self-aware. They're not digesting what they've done and the traumas, because they're so busy living that same rat race that they've created for their own reality. And they pass that on to other people. And it's just a vicious cycle.
I've
So
been the recipient of that, and I've been the perpetrator of that.
yeah,
I'm just gonna call it out right now.
yeah, yeah, it's so true. Same here. Same here.
Yeah.
Where I have to backtrack and say, remember when I said that to you in the teacher training? I was wrong.
Yeah.
I was wrong. I was chasing a dollar, and the dollar came easier when I stopped running for it.
Yeah.
It would literally just show up and say, obviously not out of thin air, but people would come to me and say, I heard you do XYZ and I'm looking for someone like that. I'd like to pay you this much money. And I'm like, that's how much money I was doing running around to studio to studio to studio.
Yeah.
And and I think sometimes we just need to spot check and ask harder questions of the people that's teaching us how to move forward in business. And I ask every single person, ask me a harder question about how I got here. Ask me a harder question than that. Don't just
So I'm
blindly.
going to ask you a hard question.
Yeah.
How did you get here? What is your secret sauce that got, I mean, you really have just like rocketed to the top.
I'm, it sounds like a broken record, but I really got true with me. I got true with the idea of, well, first and foremost, I got into the yoga business because my father kept saying, you need to teach this. Like, you're living this. Just because of the lupus diagnosis, I got pink slipped from finance industry, because there's a recession going on. And I was like, I'm just going to recreate myself, reinvent myself. And I'm going to talk very unabashedly about my struggles, because someone out there thinks that I have it easy because I smile all the time, that they're like, oh, she must have just got this handed to her. And I talk about my troubles, and I'm not shy about that. And I tell people about how I helped myself get through it. And that was really a door opener for a lot of people to realize, I thought it was going to be easy to do this. I thought that this should have been simple.
Yeah.
And then I got really real with me about what should my life look like. Because I grew up, again, I talk about two parents who worked hard. My mom had 2 jobs. My dad was, going to school on weekends, had a full-time job during the week, and was like, I still need to watch your mathematician. I need to make sure that you're doing well in school. And I said, that's not, when they turned 40, they all got sick some way, somehow, diabetes, high blood pressure. And I realized I'm going to hit 40 one day, and I don't want to do that same hard life. So I watched and observed and decided that I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to bet on me. And betting on me meant being real about where I struggle and what I have also have done. So I kept reinvesting back into me. I think that is the key to my success, is I never stopped reinvesting in me. Every single training took me further, not just because the knowledge, but the people I would meet, the questions I would ask. Then posting and being consistent about how I show up, even on social media. I mean, I shut off Facebook several times. I quit plenty of times and came back in and said, no, I still have a point of view, and I'm still going to share my story. And I never stopped talking about, how could this be better? How can I help in this organization? How can I serve more? Who else can I be helpful to? Because none of the stuff that you see behind me are going to come with me in the casket. They won't. But what's going to, right? The way that people can advance their life and be better as humans, they'll remember that. And that's what I want to be remembered for.
Yeah. I think you and I had not similar childhoods, but we both came from, I don't know if you'd call it poverty. We both have had to educate ourselves, climb up the ladder, work hard. Nothing was given to either one of us. You even had additional struggles that I didn't have, with all sorts of things. And I always had, until a few years ago, like a little chip on my shoulder, like, well, why did I have to grow up poor? And how come I didn't have somebody pay for my college? And how come I didn't have wealthy parents that introduced me to somebody who gave me a great internship? And how come I don't get to have a nice car and a nice, like I was always thinking about like, well, those wealthy people, they had it so easy, and poor little Amy. And I swear to God, what happened was I started realizing how much privilege I did have compared to a whole lot of other people,
Mhm.
and started realizing what a spoiled brat I was being,
Mhm.
looking at, the wealthy people, like, why can't I have that? And as soon as I had that realization, so many things shifted for me. I started feeling like, thank God I'm so scrappy. Thank
Mhm.
God I know how to be a hard worker.
Right.
Thank God I have resiliency.
Right.
Thank God this childhood made me like
Strong.
a
More resilient.
strong
Yeah.
person that nobody can take down.
Mhm.
Like I started realizing all the good things that came from growing up in poverty. I stopped resenting the wealthy people, which was kind of a nice side benefit.
Mhm.
And interestingly, I started believing in me more and focusing on
Yes.
what am I here to do? And then I started making more money.
Right. Right. And
And now
people
I'm
start
not looking
offering.
at anybody else feeling
Yeah.
envious.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is in its own way working smarter than harder. That, like, if I keep looking at what everyone else is doing, I'm not paying attention to my own path. I'm tripping over my own self.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, it is. I mean, just to give people context, I finished my teacher training in 2015. Now it's 2020. I mean, that's a rapid. I have to sit back and think about 5 years of growth. Wow. And all my experiences prior to getting into this business has helped me along the way to be more succinct and articulate and forward thinking and progressive about how to be a leader in the industry and not just following what everyone else does.
And tuning in instead of tuning out.
Yes.
And interestingly, when Janessa tunes in,
Mm-hmm.
more good quality opportunities come. That's the thing, not more opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
but opportunities that are a good match and actually pay
Right.
a, a real, like this idea of we're going to run all over and do everything for free to get our name out there. I just want to shut it down. It's just wrong.
I agree. I agree. There was that whole, at the beginning of COVID, everyone was running around saying, find me on Zoom for free. Why? Why are you devaluing something that actually I give a damn about? I care about my industry. I care. I want more excellence in my industry. I want more standards in my industry. I want people to take, when I say I teach yoga and I hold space for people to heal in yoga terms and yoga protocols, I want them to take that seriously. Not like, ha ha ha, you're just some hippie. And that's because of these poor decisions that people are making because they're not aligned with who they are and how they want to show up in the world. And it's damaging. It's incredibly damaging.
It's damaging to themselves, but it also is damaging our industry.
Correct.
So I know that in your coaching program and in mine, we make people find, why are you here? What are you here to do?
Right.
What are you here to do? Not what's
Yeah.
everybody else doing, but what are you here to do?
Right. Right. And
And
that's, and I want to mention that part too, Amy. Reinvesting in yourself does not necessarily mean that you always have to pay for another teacher training. It might mean reinvesting in finding a coach who can challenge you to grow into something more. I wrote about this on Instagram the other day. You can have two teachers in life, one who's going to teach you just enough that you never surpass them. And then you're going to find someone who's going to coach you and mentor you to be bigger and better, more than me, more
yep,
than the coach themselves. Find yourself someone of the latter.
yep.
Someone who just wants to see you be successful because you deserve it. Period.
Right.
Period. And that is important there too. That's accountability.
I could not agree more, because we as yoga teachers, we have a lot of yoga knowledge, but we don't have any business knowledge. What I'm telling my people in the business course is I've gone through 25 years of suffering and mistakes and failure to learn it, to give it to you in 6 months.
Right.
Like, that's worth something.
Right.
You're not going to find that in an article or in a Facebook chat group. Like,
Right.
I'm going to take you from start to finish, and we're going to build this damn business.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you every story about this failure and that failure and this failure and that failure, so that you don't step in the same pothole.
Right. That's right. And holding you in unconditional regard, whether you take the advice or not.
Right.
Part of the
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. And many times because of fear, because of attachments, because of aversions, people actually can't invest in themselves. They can't step into that. And that's okay too. I mean,
Yes.
it sometimes it takes a little time to warm up to that idea.
Mm-hmm. But always finding, in some case, a way to hold yourself accountable. Even if you cannot at this moment afford a coach or a mentor, if they are offering something else, then take that. Maybe it's following their, like, I'm sure you, same thing. People follow us waiting for that moment when they could afford the tips, you know what I mean? And meet with you one-on-one. Maybe it's even journaling and watching your progress in the things that you're writing about yourself. That's another way of you getting clear and clarity too, and working smarter than harder. All these things are important to the way in which we can be productive, particularly now where people who want to be gurus out of, you know, like they got their first really successful free Zoom class. And the next thing you know, they're like, I'm coaching you on how to be a yoga business. And I'm like, really?
One of the things that I had a really hard time investing in me, because I looked at the total budget and I would see like, well, if I get coaching or if I join a business program or if I do that, I'm never going to make that money back. That's what I thought in my mind. Like, oh, that money's gone. And now I have less money to run my business with. Like somehow it didn't occur to me that by investing in very specific things, that was actually going to expand me. So for example, one thing that I've had a really hard time, a hurdle getting over is getting a full-time assistant. Because in my mind, I can't afford a full-time assistant.
Yeah.
If I pay her, then I'm not going to make any money because she just took my salary.
Right.
And I got one recently and I am seeing that it frees me up to make enough money, not just for she and I, but then some extra. And I don't know why, I mean, 20 years of not like being scared to take that jump.
Mm-hmm.
And now realizing like, oh, wow, if you find the right person who can do all your social media, who can answer those emails, who can do some sales calls for you, who can like, that's going to be the best 40 grand I ever spent.
We're in the same boat. We're the same exact week. I literally just brought on a full-time assistant who was like, this is the reason why earlier this week I could be sick and we can still function. Like as a business can still function, was because she was like, I'll take on that load. And I'm like, look at this is another way where we can reinvest in our business and we can maintain productivity, is knowing when to let go of what's not yours. You can't do it all. You can't wear all the hats. So let someone help you. Like get the yoga block, right? You can get the strap, you can get the yoga block, right? You can get someone else who can be supportive of you and be helpful. And I personally prefer that when you hire an assistant, you're hiring the assistant, meaning you're exchanging energy for dollars. It's not like that karma yogi situation.
No.
Want to emphasize.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. But
well, let's not lie. It sounds like we've both done that. And what happens is I'm not their priority.
Right.
And it never ends up well.
Right.
No, by nobody's fault. I just didn't really invest in them. So why are they going to invest in me?
Bingo. That's exactly right. Absolutely right. And so when things were going wrong, it was just like, how could you get mad or how can you rectify if they've been working for free? Like, or they've been working for perks, which really weren't that valuable anyway. Right.
Or here's another one. I always wanted to hire this person for 4 hours a week and that one for 6, like social media, and then this person. So I was giving, I actually paid people, but they only got a few hours for me here or there, depending. I was piecemealing together all these. And so again, I was never their priority. Things didn't get done. They'd get sick. They'd disappear. I was like, how come this isn't working? And so now I got rid of all the piecemeal and said, I'm investing in one person and I'm counting on the fact, and I chose carefully to get the person that has the skills I need. And I'm investing in that, knowing that that's going to free me up to do big picture, moving the ball forward for our business.
Absolutely. And that is reciprocity, right? When we get to invest in ourselves, we also need to invest in the person who's going to help us be supported in our endeavors. That's also just that same thing of showing, like, how many times I can think about things where it got so difficult and I didn't invest in someone else to help me with this and I burned myself out. Like, that's also the conversation of not investing in yourself and doing harm to yourself. So if you need support, go out there and get it in all the different ways. Maybe you can't afford a full-time assistant, and we both have been there.
I don't know if I can afford one now, to be honest, but we're going to do it.
We're going to do it. That's exactly right. It was just, you know what, I'm going to take this step in faith. I'm going to do that. So what is important about that is that person knows that you're investing in them and their growth. And when you know you're growing, they're growing too. That's a strong statement in the time of uncertainty. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so interesting to me. I think both you and I have made bold moves in the time of Corona. I mean, for 20 years, I didn't hire myself an assistant because I didn't think I could afford it. And now it's Corona time, which should be the worst time of all. I'm like, all right, we're going for it. Let's do it.
We're hiring.
But I really say to myself, like, well, if it doesn't work, I'll figure it out.
Right.
You know, worst case scenario, I've never tried this route before. And let's just go for it.
Yeah. And so the decisions that I make are also now being held accountable because I know someone else is relying on me to make the right decisions to move forward for us now. It's that commitment. It's like your word, you know, it's like now we're in yoga, not just me, mind, body, but mind, bodies together in this one endeavor. And so I don't have time to waste here and be dilly-dallying between, oh, I think I'm going to go this way, I'm going to go that way, I'm going to go this way, I'm going to go that way. It's like, no, we concretely need to because we have payroll. Right?
Right. I can't do, that one more free thing because actually I need to make some money today to pay my payroll.
Right. Right.
So exactly. It's another accountability thing to keep us true to ourselves and what we said we wanted to do.
Yes, absolutely. Totally agreed.
And it's a whole nother person if you hire the right person to say, wait a minute, last week you said something else, or wait a minute, I thought you said you wanted this. Why are you doing that? Mm-hmm. Politely, of course.
Right.
It's like, oh yeah, it's not just me bouncing around like a ping pong ball.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that happens quite a bit in our industry where I met plenty of people who have been assistants and they're like, the direction was this way one week, it was that way another week, and then they didn't pay me that week. And now it's just like, you know, we got to be straight and narrow. We got to be very clear about us. And honestly, if we look at people outside of the yoga industry, Fortune 500 companies, you know, this is what the top performing people do. So in order for what we should do to do really, really well, we need to employ other people to help support us. We need to employ other tactics to help support us and stay in what they call the zone.
And let's be really honest, Janessa, you and I both built the products and the potential, the earning potential before we hired this person.
Yes, absolutely.
We did not hire somebody with no products and no services out there and go into debt $30,000 trying to create that. Like, you and I stayed up late nights creating downloadable webinars, creating coaching programs. You know, we got all the products together and ready to go, and even selling some of them.
Yes.
So there was some money coming in, and then now it's time to take the jump because everything's set. Now somebody's going to help. And I just want to say that because some people I know, they don't want to put in all that groundwork on their own. They're like, oh, I want to hire somebody to create me webinars, and I want to hire filming crews, and I want to, sorry. No.
There's no better way for you to know the expectations of the person that you want to hire than if you haven't done the work yourself.
Right.
And that's another conversation about, well, it sounds like you don't want to be accountable for the results of your business, because if you're leaving that to chance with someone who doesn't understand what you stand for, then it's easy to put them as the problem person. Oh, that didn't happen because you didn't. But then the question goes back to, but what role did you play in the demise of your business? And that's a very important question when people are like, I had my yoga studio. I had this, and I'll be the first one to say, I had a yoga studio. I thought if I build it, they will come. And then the next thing I know, it's like, wait a minute, this is not exactly what I was looking for. I didn't want to manage a studio. I wanted to help lead new yoga teachers. I didn't want to be responsible for supplies and check-in process. I wanted to actually have the freedom to do what I need to do for the day and then not hold down a brick and mortar. I'm doing exactly the opposite. And that was 2018. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a yoga studio once, and I was like, oh, this sucks.
Right.
No, thank you. Yeah, and it may be great for someone else, but for me, I just realized after a couple of years, like, no, this isn't how I want to spend my days. I don't feel spacious and light and joyful and free here.
Right. Right. Yeah. And so it goes back to, how do you want to show up? How do you want to feel in the morning? Those were my worst days, was when I owned a studio. I'm sad to say it, but those are days I didn't want to go into my own studio. I was like, please, just shut this down.
I had the same experience. I'm going to tell something really funny. I was getting in the studio ready to open it, like painting it and making the bathroom look cute and all that stuff. And I remember distinctly sitting in the parking lot with my mom, who had come to help me put the finishing touches on it. And she looked over at me and she said, honey, if you want to get out of this, you can still get out of this. I'm like, I can't get out of this. I've signed a lease. What are you talking about? She's like, it's never too late. And what do you know? I should have on that day gone back to the landlord and been like, here's your keys, keep my deposit. We're done. Right. But I didn't. I think it was 2 more years of hell that I forced myself to do that, because I said I was going to do it.
Right. Right. And sometimes we get in our own way with like, no, I promised myself and I'm going to do this. And the next thing you know, you're like, oh, but those are the moments of growth. When you really know whether it's for you or not for you, is when you're in the midst of it and you're like, oh, I have to open tomorrow. Oh, I hope no one, I would literally be like, I hope no one shows up. Oh, someone signed up for a class. Damn it.
I remember I closed my studio, and like within a month, I could go to India, because with my studio, I couldn't just leave for a month. And so within a month, I was like on an airplane going to India, and I felt so free. Mm-hmm. I was like, thank you, God, for letting me have this freedom to just pack up my bags. Yeah. And the month of December, I get to hang out in India like that, you know?
Yeah.
But that's what we're talking about, is like being true to that voice inside that's saying, I don't want to do that. I want to do this.
Right. Right. And that sometimes is part of that accountability process. And I think sometimes I knew in the midst of that painting process and putting the floors down and figuring out what the bathroom should look like. And, oh gosh, I got to deal with mind body. I think usually by the time you get to mind body, knowing what your payment systems are, you're like, this is not for me.
Some people love it. I mean, I do know studio owners that love it because it aligns with their deeper needs and values around building community and having moms together and but apparently for you and I, when we listened to that deeper voice, we did not feel joyful and spacious when you realized that's how I know is when I first, it goes back to the beginning of our conversation, when I first realized I'm awake. And if I have dread, I know I'm on the wrong path. And if I'm like, I feel happy today and spacious, what's ahead? I know I'm on the right path. Right. And you just got to listen to that.
Yes, you definitely have to listen to that. And then, put the systems in place that can hold you accountable to that feeling. Right. The moment that, I had hired several coaches prior to getting here. And actually throughout my entire wellness career, I had a coach. And even if I was just like, hey, you know what? I can't afford your numbers. I can afford this. Would you like this? And some people were like, absolutely not. When you get more money, talk to me. And then some other people were like, I'll work with you. And that was quite helpful too, because sometimes people think like you might get a no. Like we sometimes put the answer in our heads and it's not really reality. You just have to sometimes just ask. And maybe it's not as deep of a discount as you would have liked. It might be a little bit more, but you get to show up when someone's bringing you to like, could you rise to this occasion? And I remember one time I hired a coach and he had said, You know, if you feel like in the morning, when you get up and you do your routine and you journal and you do all this, that you can keep that experience, that feeling of joy throughout the day, go in that direction. But the moment that you feel like, oh, that next task is going to be, oh, I can't, that's an indication that something's off. So I'm like, that's amazing, because he's not a yoga teacher and he's telling me about dinacharya.
Yep.
Right? He's telling me about, if you stay consistent with the way that you take care of yourself, the moment that you taste something that disagrees with you, you would know it because you can pinpoint it. And I was like, wow, that is so true, even in business. So that's part of that productivity level, is like every hour on the hour when I'm looking at my calendar through the day, I'm saying, I want to talk to that person at this time. I want to talk to that person at that time. You know, and if there is a moment that I feel like I don't want to have that conversation because it's just not bringing me joy to see them or to meet with them, or I'm going to have that same conversation again for the umpteenth time, that's an indication that that conversation needs to be had with somebody else, not me.
I'm with you on both ends. I'm with you when I've been working with someone who's mentoring me and I'm just not feeling it with them. But it also goes the other direction. If I'm working with a client or a student that is not doing what they said they're going to do, they're unfocused, they're making excuses, they're at some point, I just feel like, I don't think we're a good match. I think someone else would be better for you. And I can't do it. I cannot push myself through those sessions. There is something, and I've had this since I was a little girl. There's something deep inside me that will not allow me to deny myself, to abandon myself. It either has to be said or I have to leave, but there's no in between for me. And it's got me in a lot of trouble, frankly, but I cannot bullshit my way through things. I'm not capable. How about you?
I also am not capable. This is a great example. 2 weeks ago, launched expansion group. And there's one person, just from my gut, just got underneath my skin, from the questions that they were asking, for the expectations and the sense of entitlement that they needed of me, because they're like, we're starting the coaching program. I need you now. Wait. So we got on a call and I said, what can I help you with? And I resolved a little bit of her nerves and just her questions. And then I said, I have to just share this with you. This is not the way that I work. If you're going to move forward with me, understand how I work. We meet at this designated time because I have energy for you at that time. If you need anything in addition, that will be additional coaching. That's a one-on-one. That's at a different price point. I work with you. I don't work for you. And if that's a problem, we can bow out now and I'll still respect you in the morning. And she was just like, you're right. I was just like, I am, because I'm going to tell you honestly, I don't like something. You're not going to have me move. I mean, maybe I take it from my pets, because if you ever try to walk a dog that just doesn't want to go back in the house, they just sit right there.
We have a little pit bull that he walks so fast around half the block, and then on the second half, every 5 feet, he's lying down, sitting, you're dragging. He knows we're on the way home. It's just, that's exactly how it is. It's such a good analogy.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we're feeling like we're being dragged and we want to just say, sit, like, probably not going to be going well.
Right. Right. Exactly.
But that's a productivity tool. I mean, it sounds strange, but to recognize, like, I feel like I'm being dragged into this situation, or to work with this people, or to this project. If you're feeling that way, that's going against your inner compass. And yet sometimes we have to finish those projects. We can't just bail like, oh, I don't feel like it anymore. Like, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying don't continuously walk into that situation over and over and over again and get clarity.
And get clarity. And so another example of that, when we talk about the trajectory of my career, that I felt that way in December with Yoga International. I felt like, you know what, this production thing is not for me. It's such a hassle and an obligation. And I don't like feeling like I'm obligated to anybody or anything. In January, I had stated that. I was like, you know, I'm really passionate about the diversity here. I'm really passionate about moving our protocols here, getting more standardized, having better conversations. And they were like, well, if you have an idea of where you want to go ahead and do it. And I sat with myself for 6 months wondering if I was going to stay there or not. And I started developing my own coaching program and putting it out there publicly. And instead of doing just yoga teacher trainings like Business of Yoga, I just said, you know what, I'm going to stand on my own too. And that's how I got to this place where I'm at now. And then I said, before I let you go, Yoga International, I'd like to present you with this, because this is what it sounds like you need. And it sounds like what I need to be committed to being here. And it worked out. So sometimes it doesn't mean quitting altogether, but re-envisioning a new way to work together.
And you had landed the director of people and culture at Yoga International, which is, in my opinion, if you look at all the big time yoga organizations like IAYT, Yoga Alliance, Yoga Service Council, Yoga International, none of them have hired a person like you. And every single organization needs a person like you.
Right.
At this point in history.
Yes. Yeah. And so that just gave me chills that you even saying this, because some folks have said, how did you get that? And how come I don't have that job? And I'm like, well, if this is an example for you, then a place that you want to lead, pick any organization that you want to be at and go create it.
Yep.
If that's where you want to go. Don't rest your laurels on Yoga International. I got that. Find another one and go there.
And I'm going to tell you, none of those organizations are probably going to be like, here's the job description and here's the $95,000 a year and here, come apply. And if they do, they're going to get about 7,500 people applying from the yoga world and otherwise.
Right.
You went and said, what's true to me? What do I want to do every day when I wake up? How can I make a difference in the world with your skills and talents? How does that match up? And here's the job description I can see working for us both. They were like, sounds good.
That's right. That's absolutely right. I created the entire thing, the job description and all, pay scale and all, was like, here it is. Here's my proposal. So I still, even in this position, didn't get it handed on a silver spoon. I still worked for it.
But it came from within you. And that's where it links to productivity. You could have run around for decades looking for a position like this, trying to get to know these people and those people and have a good impression over here and do a conference there and write an article over here. And everybody try to look at Janessa and maybe you'll hire her one day. Please.
Right.
But no, you sat back and journaled and you felt and you sensed and you let it come from inside you. You saved yourself decades right there.
Right. That's absolutely right. Absolutely right. And it goes back to that same choosing the hard path of sitting with yourself and being clear with yourself and holding yourself accountable to that feeling. I didn't want to go back driving I drove 4 hours a day to Honesdale to film production, 2 hours one way. And I was unhappy the entire time, thinking that had to be part of the process to get me to the next level. And then I said, no, this is not real. I'm at an age right now, this is not sustainable. So we need to get super real with them, because I have to get super real with me. And that's how I got here.
And so that's what we're trying to tell people today. You've been through it. I've been through it in my own different way. Go in, not out.
Indeed.
And create from within. And every single person has a very unique path. I say everyone has their own, I call them city powers, like you have something in you that the world needs. And somehow that's got to come out, whether you need to hire a coach or get in a business program, or you can figure it out through journaling and listening to your deeper self. Somehow, some way, this yoga world has to do that, which is what yoga teaches us.
Bingo.
So, and what I see for the yoga world, say that all the 90,000 Yoga Alliance teachers and all the 6,000 certified yoga therapists, if everybody did that process, what you did and what I've done, not only would we be happier and change our own lives, but the entire world would transform.
Absolutely. We would be those paraprofessionals we want to be. We would be moving the culture in the world in directions that is more sustainable for everyone. I mean, why not now, in these times when people would need the yoga modalities and the techniques and the protocols and the discipline, the tapas now? But, I reached out to hospitals in the very beginning of the year and said, how can we help? How can I be of service? I'm a yoga therapist. I'd love to be of service. And they're like, yoga? I literally had to put in a pitch to talk about literally the studies of how we can help with, VO2 uptake and being able to increase blood oxygen levels and reduce stress. Literally pull out the research on what these modalities do. And they were like, oh, well, we could do that for our frontline. Yes, we can do that for our frontline. And then you can refer that out, in private practice to anyone who actually is post, COVID or coronavirus positive and might need to sustain building up the amplitude of their breathing skills after COVID. Like, that's important there too. You don't need to go run and exacerbate your lungs. You can just sit here and pay attention to your uptake, your breath retention, your exhalation, and you can sit still and do that. Just like you were talking about in the very beginning of just a pranayama practice.
Yeah. And here's, what I see a lot of people doing is trying to go get those jobs at the hospital that don't exist, that the hospital doesn't even know they want to hire. To me, again, that's going out. Like, maybe one day there's going to be tons of hospitals looking for yoga therapists, but now isn't it?
Now, right.
But you could make a very successful business teaching people how to deal with their post-COVID symptoms.
That's right.
That could be on fire.
Like, they should send us a check for coming up with this idea now.
I don't even care if they send me a check, just don't do it.
Yeah.
Like, don't tell me there's no work in yoga. Oh my gosh, there is work. Yeah. There is work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. More now than ever. People are looking for it. People are needing it. So it is going in to go out. And then, literally 4 weeks afterwards of proposing this, and I knew, once again, like, you know what? I don't really want to do that. I just see that there's an opportunity for that, right? And this is literally just months ago. I want to stay in my coaching business. I called up someone else who was in my yoga therapy training, who was also, finished and was working on being a respiratory therapist. And I said, hey, I know you're in Vermont and this is in New York, but Zoom can help you, right? They can Zoom right in. You weren't going to get in the hospital anyway. You weren't going to get into people's homes anyway. Is this an opportunity for you? And it became an opportunity for her. So me being aligned, even though I may see opportunities out there, but having that network of like-minded people that you can call on and say, hey, I got this great opportunity. I'm thinking of you. Would you be interested?
Yeah.
Also quite important, helping your productivity level.
I 100% agree that one of the things I love in life is passing up an opportunity, but knowing who would be perfect for that and trying to get that match going. That feels so good.
Yeah. We did the right thing. Yeah. It's feeling good about doing the right thing.
Yeah. And you wouldn't have been happy doing that, Janessa. You are so, I always liken it to somebody asks you out on a date and then they propose to you. Like, no, say no, thank you. You're not my marriage material, but hey, this one over here, they might be your marriage material.
Right.
I'm going to wait for my Prince Charming, right? Which is what you did. Yeah. You waited for what your soul needed to be doing.
That's right.
And manifested that.
That's right. So for anyone who's watching who's like, oh, it sounds really easy. And I'm like, no, we all go through that. Mm-hmm. But we have to find ourselves accountability practices that helps us keep real with who we want to be in the world.
I'll just tell one more story and then we got to wrap it up. Several people in my business course right now are like, I had no idea how hard running a business would be. I had no idea. And I'm like, yeah, it's a lot of work. Mm-hmm. You don't just get to go show up and teach, be the princess in front of the class and then leave.
Right.
You're doing it all. Your marketing, your accounting, there is so much to do. So I don't want anybody to come away from this like, oh, they said it was so easy. I'll just go tune into myself and everything will manifest. Poof.
No, it's the hardest job you'll ever do, but it's the most rewarding job you will ever do. And it's all founded on being yourself, authenticity, 100%.
I would rather live exactly the way I want to live, true to my values, not answering to anyone 70 to 80 hours a week,
Mhm.
and be somebody else, do things I don't want to do, answer to them, do it their way, not my way, for 40 hours a week.
Right. Agreed.
On that note, I think we should finish it up. Any last words of wisdom, or is that it?
No, that's all I got. This has been a
Okay.
pleasure.
It has. We have, I think, what have we done? 5 or 6 already? So I don't know if we have any more weeks. We have to talk about that, but this was the end of our outline that we made. So
So,
Janessa and I will get back with you.
and if there's any topics that anybody wants to develop more, talk more about, put it in the chat, put it in the comments, and we'd love to engage you guys as well.
Yeah, that's one thing I tell all my business students, that if you can add something positive and give something away, and nobody ever buys anything from you, like us doing this, if nobody ever bought a thing from either one of us, it's great. We still put good karma into the world.
Right. That's
And
right.
it feels good,
Mhm.
you know?
Absolutely.
So, all right. Thank you so much for your time. And we will be in touch and maybe put together some more topics and reads. And I'm sure they will see us again.
Definitely. Have,
All right.
have a good one.
You too. Bye, Janessa.